Welcome to the third of our four-part series during October Small Business Month, all focused on business success. My name is Mishka Balsam, and on behalf of my colleagues, thank you for joining us. You're in for a treat today, as you will have two presenters, all actually talking about creating success. We're joined by Laura TOLHOEK, who is with Essential HR, and she will speak about performance and development culture, an important step to building relationships that will increase team efficiency, effectiveness, and motivation. And then we're going to be joined by Matt Bennett with M&P, who will speak about optimization of a different type. In this case, he will talk about the financial process through technology. Matt, Laura, thank you so very much for joining us today. And thank you to all of our attendees for being with us today. Just a couple of housekeeping aspects. Each presentation is followed by a Q&A session, so please keep the comments and questions coming because they're most critical to all of the seminars that we're holding. If you wish to enable live transcript, just refer to the bottom of your Zoom screen for that option. And the same as with past sessions, this session will be recorded and will be available on our site or can also be directly emailed to you. The Business Success Series is powered by Meridian Credit Union, an organization deeply committed to community and small business. It is Ontario's largest and Canada's second largest credit union, helping to grow the lives of more than 370,000 members through their 89 branches and 15 business banking centers, managing over $26 billion in assets. They have 1,900 employees that are experts offering a full range of financial products and services, and ones that are deeply ingrained in the community. Thank you for all that you do for businesses always, and especially during this time. We have partnered with Meridian through our Ontario Chamber of Commerce organization, our sister organization, and we will share more information about this in the chat function, but it allows you to grow your business through some exclusive banking offers, not just for you and your organization, but also it includes fantastic perks for your employees. We are being joined today by two senior small business advisors, Ms. Meridian Credit Union, Mike Wagner and Chris Walker. Mike, over to you.
Thanks, Mishka. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the GNCC Small Business Month Business Success Series powered by Meridian. As Mishka said, my name is Mike Wagner, Senior Small Business Advisor, and I'm joined by my colleague, Chris Walker. And at Meridian, we understand that small to medium-sized businesses make up more than 90% of all businesses in Canada. And that's why we're here to be a part of your dedicated team and support your business along the way. Meridian has partnered with the Chamber to offer a special incentive program for all Chamber members, and you can be a member of Meridian currently or would like to join to be a member. And some of the highlights are reduced account fees, and there is a signing bonus for new members. At this point, I'd like to welcome my colleague, Chris Walker.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chris Walker, Senior Small Business Advisor with Meridian. I get the pleasure today of introducing our two guest speakers. So our first speaker will be Laura TOLHOEK. As a certified human resource leader and the proprietor of Essential HR, Laura TOLHOEK knows that when a business faces HR problems, there is no room for ambiguity, only positive results. For the last 15 years, she has blended sound HR practices with her pragmatic approach to improve business performance. Now Laura leads a team of HR professionals as they navigate complex HR situations with managers, help guide decisions, and instill confidence with actionable steps. In her spare time, Laura enjoys the company of her husband and two children. The kids continue to help her hone her leadership skills of negotiation and compromise. And after a decade, her husband is starting to warm up to the performance reviews. Secondly, we have Matt Bennett, Senior Manager, M&P. Matt is a member of M&P's Ease Cloud accounting team in Burlington, helping private enterprise clients. Matt works one-on-one with small to medium-sized businesses that need help with their bookkeeping and are seeking to leverage new technology such as cloud accounting app ecosystems. Matt's services include outsourced accounting and bookkeeping services, migration of accounting systems, and connecting operational applications to financial management systems. He excels at building and growing teams, business development, and strategic partnerships. Prior to joining MMP, Matt was a national leader of strategic partnerships at a developer of financial management and tax preparation software solutions. And then I think we're back over to you, Mishka. So welcome to our guest speakers.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you very much for the kind introduction. At this time, the format will be that we're going to hand it over to Laura first for a presentation, which will be followed by a Q&A session. And at around 12:30, 12:35, we'll pass it on to Matt for a presentation and question answers at that time. So very much looking forward to the dialogue over the next hour, the very important dialogue to businesses. And Laura, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mishka. I think we're screen sharing now, right? Yes, it's there. Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. And as I was preparing this, I thought, what magic bullet, what piece of information can I give in 15 minutes to make all these amazing business owners' lives easier? And what I thought to talk about today was not so much about the ins and outs and the particulars of performance management systems, but just the opportunity that we have as employers, as managers, as supervisors, to enhance our communication systems. Because at the end of the day, the communication systems that we have within our business is what makes our HR systems. I'm just trying to forward this. Here we go. So who is Essential HR? We are a Niagara-based company. We help small businesses, which means 5 to 50 people, as well as scaling solopreneurs with their HR systems through partnerships, as well as through project work, such as recruitment, performance management, employee relations, compensation, and such. So today we're talking about team management. And why is this important? Well, at the end of the day, we're all looking to build businesses that not only support our communities, support our families, but are growing and scaling. And right now we're in a really interesting economy in the sense that you might have heard this before, but it's called the Great Resignation. It's the most intense recruitment economy that we've ever been in. Right now, the US has 55% of their people, they're saying, that are likely to look for new work in the next 12 months. Currently, Canadian companies are seeing a turnover rate of 21%. So what does this mean for you? It means that employers are in the middle of an intense war on talent, and it's not likely to let up anytime soon. So whereas before employers might have thought, you know what, it might just be easier to terminate this person and hire somebody new, we're not in the position that that might be the easiest solution. We're in the position where we really need to double down on the people we have, find ways to develop the internal capacities that we already have within our organizations, and find ways to bring performance levels higher. One of the ways that people often do that is through performance development systems. And so we're going to talk a little bit about formal performance development systems. Now, many of you have probably seen or been a part of a performance development system in the past, whether you've created one for your own business or whether you've been in other organizations that have had formal development systems. Things that you can see in formal development systems include qualitative measures. So KPIs, key performance indicators, it might include customer service ratings. It might include efficiency ratings on individuals' work or or ratings on the efficiency of piecework. You can see the quantitative measures. Sorry, so those are the quantitative measures. You can see qualitative measures like making sure the person's interactions with customers and with their team is lining up with your visions and vision and values of your organizations. You can see observations being a part of formal performance programs, as well as goal setting. So goal setting from the supervisor setting goals for the employee to the employee setting personal performance goals, as well as even performance or goals outside of what might be in their circle of influence in terms of what they need to do for their job. And feedback, that two-way conversation can be included in formal performance programs. So you might have seen some of this previously, or it might be a part of your system that you have currently. But what I want to talk to you more is about making sure whatever performance system you have is not a waste of your time. And I appreciate that so many people showed up today, because a lot of times when you hear the words performance review system, there is a collective groan that comes out of an organization. And thankfully we're on Zoom today, so I can't actually hear the collective groan that comes when you say annual review time. A lot of times performance development systems can feel like an administrative burden. A lot of times managers and supervisors don't find any pleasure in administrating it, and it can get put off. I'm going to be here today to say, if your performance and development system isn't increasing the connection and trust between the leaders of your organization and the team members and employees that you have hired, it is going to be a waste of your time, your energy, and you're essentially affecting the bottom line. So what do we do to make sure that it's not a waste of our time? Maybe in your past, when you think about performance review systems in other organizations, or maybe even within your own, what are some of the characteristics that come to mind? Has it been used as a download to think about what has happened over the last, say, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? Or has it been used as a conversation that builds trust between the supervisor and the employee? When a manager or supervisor comes out of a performance review and development conversation with their team, there should be an understanding that this was a quality conversation. The manager should come out knowing more about what drives that employee. Where do they want to go with their career? When do they feel the most motivated at work? And what parts of their job do they love? What parts of the job do they not love? What this information does for your manager and supervisor helps them guide and curate a role that puts the employee in a position to be successful. It also helps the leader be a better leader, knowing what drives the employee. At the end of the day, your performance and development system should be increasing the connection and trust between the manager and supervisor. So let's look for the opportunities that we have within our systems. And maybe you want to compare these next few notes with what you're already doing, or if you're in the position where you're looking to build a formal performance and development system, these are the things you want to have. Now, performance and development systems, they can be quarterly, they can be annually, they can be biannually. I'm not here to tell you what the magic bullet is. A lot of times we're going to talk about coaching, developing a coaching culture so that we don't have these formal systems so much, but we have more ongoing communication is one of the new things that's coming out in terms of the psychology of performance development and goal setting. But what are employees looking for in these conversations? Because I want to say to you that performance reviews and development and goal setting has got to be more than a document. It's got to be more than just putting words on a page and checking a box that we've done it for this year. So when you're looking at building the system, what do we want to make sure that we include? Whether it's quarterly, monthly, annually, biannually, or whether you're just doing it haphazardly because that's the state of the business that you're in currently and you're trying to do your best, but it hasn't been formalized at this point. So what do we want to include? First is authentic effort. Now, if anybody has ever had a performance review done with them before in the past, and you've put your heart and soul into this document, or you know employees who have put their heart and soul into the words they've written on this page, and you've had a supervisor or manager who's come to the table and hasn't really looked over the information for more than 5 minutes, where the employee wrote a paragraph, the supervisor has written a sentence, that effort and that unbalanced effort between the supervisor and the employee can cause a lot of disengagement in the whole process. So the first thing we need to make sure that we have, despite what type of communication system or performance system we're using, is authentic effort on both the individuals who are coming to the table for this discussion. The second is two-way feedback. If this is going to be a download from the manager or supervisor to the employee, there's going to be a disengagement of the employee in the process. There needs to be more communication from an upward level so that people can really, so the supervisor and managers can really understand what is going on in the minds and in the heads of the team that they are leading. The next is clarity. So when the supervisors come to the table with the feedback, it needs to be clear. It needs to provide a path forward. Generic ways of saying, yeah, you're doing a great job, just keep doing what you're doing, might feel good and might be easy, But when people have these conversations, when your team members are having these conversations, they want specifics. They want to know that you understand what they do each day and how you contribute and the effort that you're putting in. And they also want to know in practical terms what they can do to even be better. So whether somebody is a good performer, a great performer, or an underperformer, they want to have practical information about what they can do to increase their performance to a better level. And then we need to talk about the big picture. So we need to talk about what is going on presently, what this person's role and how it's affecting the organizational goals, as well as where do we see them in the future. A lot of times we look at these star team members and we think, wow, they're going to be great. In 2 years down the road, this is how I foresee it and where they're going to go and where their career is going to be built with us. But we leave these ideas in our head and we don't speak them out because we maybe haven't formalized them completely. But I can assure you that team member is also thinking 2 years from now, what do I want to be doing? Where do I want to be? And if the conversation hasn't occurred with their employer about their future, they're going to start looking for a future in other places. So that whole aspect of development for the future is very important in your discussions through your performance management system. The last is consistency. What you promise, you have to uphold. So if you don't have a performance management system or a development and goal setting system right now, maybe you start with biannual or once a year. If you have one, you're like, hey, we can do better on this and we can have more conversations. Maybe you increase it to quarterly. What I would suggest is no matter what you do, align it with the communication system that you already have in your organization. If your supervisors and leaders are already talking to your people on a regular basis, it's easier to implement a monthly check-in. If your supervisors and managers are very removed from their frontline teams, it's a lot harder to implement a monthly check-in and you need to start smaller. So try to implement it within your communication culture already. So when should you introduce performance expectations? I'm going to just take one step back here and I'm going to talk about the job description. And the job description is the cornerstone of everything that the individual's role is based off of. A quality job description is going to include not only the responsibilities and the details of what that role looks like, but it's also going to include the key performance indicators. So the key performance indicators are the things that are in your head as a manager or supervisor that are now on paper and can be clearly understood by the individuals reading it. I'm going to give you an example. So we have a client who we're making a job description for, and they had an individual who did good work. They were a marketing coordinator, and they made great graphics. They posted to social media. They did decent copy. But the one missing piece was they were slow as molasses. So in their head, what they were putting out was great, but the efficiency of what they were doing left something to be desired. But if all of these ideas of how many posts should be put out and what level of efficiency an individual should have are only in the head of the supervisor or manager and not explicitly given to the employee, we have a mismanagement of understanding. So that's where your job description becomes very important, especially that point of the key performance indicators. Now, when you start hiring, your job description turns into your interview guide very easily because you know exactly what you need to hire for. And then it turns into your training guide because these are the steps you're going to go through in order to get somebody up to date with what needs to go on in their role. And then that turns into the basis for your performance management system because you already have outlined what is expected of this individual in this role. So when should you introduce performance expectations? And I'm going to throw the question back at you. When would you want to know as a new employee what is expected of you in terms of qualitative and quantitative efforts? Would it be after your first 90 days? Would it be a year down the road? Or would you as a new employee want to know what's expected of you, not only on your first day, but perhaps even when you're interviewing for the role? So this is a question I don't think has a hard answer, but I would put out there, in my biased opinion, that giving information about what the performance expectations are in the first week, if not in the job interview, is going to give a greater understanding to both the employee of what is expected, but also to know that the communication is there. Now, they might not be able to hit those performance expectations for the first 30, 60, or maybe even, a year down the road, but this is what we are looking towards. So we've talked about performance systems, the formal performance system, but how does that differ from coaching? And now, as I had mentioned, a coaching culture is starting to gain more traction and understanding within our businesses. So what is a coaching culture? So there's informal and there's formal coaching. Coaching culture is a communication culture. It's about being able to have those quick conversations with individuals. So informal coaching looks like, hey, that was a great job you did with that upset customer. Really appreciated you holding your patience with this. If I were doing that, I'd also have done A, B, and C. So next time, if you're looking to upgrade how you discuss that or how to deal with that situation, here's a few ideas. It's also talking about the formal coaching, which might be more of those check-ins that you have on a monthly basis. The difference between having a coaching culture and a performance management system is that you're able to accurately and efficiently discuss issues that are going on. What happens though is sometimes in this coaching culture, we think, well, I gave corrective feedback right away, so now I have a coaching culture. But as much as you're giving that informal coaching for opportunities that a person has in their performance, we need to be giving the coaching for where they've done a fantastic job. And that has to be balanced. A lot of times we say, oh yeah, we told the person they're doing a great job. They know they're doing a great job. And I would throw out there that a lot of times, the number of times you have to tell somebody that they are doing a great job and you really appreciate their work far outweighs the number of corrective opportunities that they have. So if you tell somebody some corrective feedback, that's going to stick with them for the one time that you told them. Whereas if you tell somebody you appreciate them and give them some positive feedback, you're going to need to do that 5 times before it really registers to them how much that you appreciate what they're doing and that they're doing a great job. Just because of the way human nature is, we love to pull those negative connotations and that negative feedback and hold on to it. It's the same way that if you do a presentation and ask for feedback after it, you'll have 99 people saying you did a great job, we loved it, it was fantastic, and that one person who gave some negative feedback is the only one you think about while you're going to sleep that night. So how does a coaching and performance management culture intertwine? Can you have both? Absolutely. Again, whatever you're doing, I would go back to those main points of what needs to be included in a performance management system. Coaching underperformers. So what happens when we have an individual who isn't hitting the mark, or maybe who has had an issue, a performance issue, a singular performance issue, or somebody who is consistently underperforming? How do we deal with these underperformers? And I'm going to go back to those 5 again. Authentic effort. Let's be honest, it takes a lot more effort for us to deal with individuals who we might have issues with or who interact with less in a very authentic way. If we have an underperformer, my guess is it isn't the same person that we, talk about what happened on the weekend with, or have nice, great conversations with. Oftentimes when we have underperformers, we tend to put them a little bit more into the corner. We tend to keep them at an arm's length and we don't interact with them. So when we have to have these coaching conversations, bringing a lot more authenticity to the conversation takes a lot of more emotions from the supervisor and manager. So the authentic effort that we need includes really wanting to see the performance of this individual be increased, not only for the benefit of the organization, obviously, but for their own benefit, that you have a vested interest in them being able to uphold the expectations of that role. Feedback. The feedback has to be fair. And it has to be specific. A lot of times when you're coaching underperformers, if you are vague, it will fly over their head and you will never understand why they can't capture it. So it needs to be specific situations, specific qualitative or quantitative situations with the facts. The more specific you can get, the more it's going to land, and you're going to be able to see a difference in the performance going forward. You also need to include the big picture. So how is what they're doing currently affecting the team, affecting the organization, and affecting your clients and customers? And consistency. I would love to tell you that you're going to have one conversation with an underperforming individual and all of your problems will be solved. But unfortunately, we're not quite there. It's going to take a lot more effort than just one conversation, and it's going to be administrative and it's going to be emotional. But the end goal is to have some great conversations that incur great performance to elevate the level of the organization. Now, I know I'm running behind, so I'm going to quickly go through to the end of what about remote work environments. Remote work environments require additional effort in terms of performance management when it comes to the quantitative measures that you're measuring. So because we're in a remote environment, we don't often see the day-to-day we don't overhear the conversations with clients. What we need to do is double down on those key performance measurements and double down on the communication that we have with our individuals in order to make sure that we can accurately understand the performance of an individual and give feedback on it. Finally, I'm going to end here because I know I am running out of time. If you're looking for some information about how to have quality conversations from a very practical sense, what to ask your people to get the information you know in order to be a better supervisor and manager and make sure these performance and development conversations have value, we've created a quick download. It can be found at essentialhr.ca/GNCC. And you can use that to start guiding your conversations. Start today. Don't wait till you have the perfect performance system, but make sure that you have, those quality conversations that will start driving that loyalty with your team.
Laura, thank you so very much for this really informative presentation. Really greatly appreciate it. And we've had a couple of questions coming in and a couple of questions that had been actually pre-submitted to us as well. So I'm trying to get to some of them. And one of the main ones has been, and it's a top of mind for so many employers and supervisors right now, is the impact that COVID-19 had on the workplace and how actually now it's less about the how to design and review people's performance, but it's that employees' needs have changed and wishes have changed. And we're at a time of where employers are eager to listen to that. Can you speak to that particular part of it and how it actually impacts and needs to impact the HR strategy of employers?
I actually don't think it has changed the HR strategy employers need to have, but I think it has brought greater light to the requirement to have customized approaches to different people. We cannot manage everybody with the same brush. Mishka, how I manage you is going to be very different than how I manage Matt, because you are two individuals. If I want to say, Mishka, you did a great job and send out a company-wide email, you might say, hey, thanks so much. I really appreciate that. And you feel appreciated. Matt might say, oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. And that's for positive communication. How do we deal with the performance and the constructive feedback? So I don't think that it has changed as much as it's made managers and leaders have to step up again. So this is where I'd encourage businesses to look at their middle management teams, because that's where engagement lies. You can be the best leader, the best business owner, but if the relationship between your middle managers and your front level line teams is not good, it doesn't matter what you do as an employer, you're not going to get the engagement and the effectiveness out of that relationship. So in light of your question, Mishka, I would say invest in your middle management in terms of their supervisor and their management skills and how they deal with people.
It's an excellent point, actually, Laura, that you're making. We also, at the same time, the other question, and I think I can pull it together from a couple of comments that we've received, is that a lot of employers right now are actually wanting and are looking for their workforce. They're growing their workforce. They're wanting to rehire people. Some people have left. Lots of people are leaving, actually, the workforce right now. What tips can you give them to ensure that people are hiring correctly and to make sure what are some of the things that they need to look for, maybe differently than what we've done before? And again, these days, we might actually have the only interviews that we have will be via Zoom or other virtual formats that might make it more difficult to have a sense of how they could integrate in the already existing team culture that is there.
So I'd say two things. And I'm going to go back to that job description, is being clear about what you need is very important. And a lot of small businesses, we tend to see what's out there and then pull somebody, and we're not clear about who it is that we need first. So my first suggestion is be very clear about who you need and then ask the right questions. We're in a place where we really, I mentioned it before, the great resignation. It's harder to find people. People are out there. You might get a bunch of resumes, but what we found is that people are kicking tires. So they get all the way to the end of the whole recruitment aspect and then they decline. or they get poached in between when they sign on the dotted line with you before when they're supposed to start. So we're in this very peculiar time. So the first thing we need to do is ask the right questions in that interview. Make sure that we are doing a fact finding and gut check in our interviews. A lot of employers, we love gut checks, right? Oh, I just know that they're the right person. But we need to make sure that that's backed up with facts, that they can actually do the job and that they fit within the organization that we have. The second is it's all about your employer brand. And you say, I have 15 people. I don't have an employer brand. Your employer brand is reflected in how you deal with that recruitment flow. So the communication that you give the candidates who are applying to your organization, the quality of the time that you spend with these individuals, the maintenance of that relationship through the communication process, whether they're hired or not, all of that reflects on you as an employer. And somebody who has a great experience in that interview process, you are going to win over somebody who has a bad experience with somebody else, who the person wasn't ready for the employer wasn't ready for the interview. There was a lack of communication in the process. So win it in the practical sense as much as you are winning it with the opportunities that you have in your business.
That makes sense. Thank you. We have, there's one more question that has come in, and I think it's a really valuable one because it's looking at compensation. Mm-hmm. And now we have employers in this situation and employees in this situation that could and are worldwide connected in any kind of remote opportunity that is there, and sometimes it can create a challenge for local employees, employers at the same time. But how can companies tie that change that we have seen over the last 18 months to compensation that is there?
So it is not, it is very common right now that employers are changing their compensation practices in order to win and keep employees. Yeah. Prior to this, I was not a fan of counter offering a leaving employee for more money just to keep them, because my understanding in my background always said they're eventually going to leave anyways. It just isn't today. It's going to be 6 months or a year down the road. Now, I would say if you have a person who's leaving, counter offering and knowing that it's a stopgap for another 6 months might be a strategy you need to take because of the environment that we're in, whereas that would never have been my advice in previous times. So it's an individual question. And I think it has to be looked at based off of the industry, based off of the company itself. Certainly making sure that your business is viable with the compensation strategy is of the frontmost concern. But second is overinflating compensation in order to compete in this environment is a risky game. It's a risky game for all of us that we're all playing right now, because in order to get that talent, how else do you win it? So again, going back to the culture of the organization and the experience and the environment that you're providing. Is it going to win over a person who wants to make $20,000 more down the street? No. Is it going to win over someone who's been offered $3,000 more down the street? It will. So I think it's a two-phased approach, is making sure your compensation is marketable, but also making sure you have the culture inside your organization that people want to be a part of.
Yeah, Laura, it's an excellent point. And it's really a decision that a lot of employers are struggling with, but they're very willing to have this conversation at this point too. So it's, and it's interesting to hear that in your practice, how your opinion of it has shifted, and it likely will shift again, but it's really reflective of what are the needs at this time, and what are especially the employer needs and the employee needs too at the same time. So we really appreciate the dialogue. And Laura, on that note, I'm actually going to shift over to Matt, who is also with us today. And Matt had already been introduced. He is a member of the MNMP team, the East Cloud accounting team in Burlington, helping private enterprise clients. And Matt is here actually to talk about a different way of kind of optimizing something, not just like a team, HR practices and others is what we just talked about. But in this particular case, we're actually going to look at incorporating technology into business processes that can provide a greater need for business owners to have a full understanding of what their operation is like, how it can be maximized, how some practices can be streamlined, the role of digital strategies at the same time too. So Matt, on that note, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thanks, Mishka. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Perfect.
Perfect. And yeah, thanks for that presentation, Laura. Actually, we have our 6-month check-in with our staff coming up in a few weeks. So it's pretty timely and a lot of interesting content there. So I appreciate getting a chance to listen in on that. I appreciate everybody who's joining here today. So I'll hop right into it. But basically what I want to discuss with the group today is really how our team leverages technology for small businesses to automate what they can, but then also get real-time information about their business so they can make key strategic decisions. So just really quickly, a little bit about MNP. If you don't know who we are, we're a national accounting firm. MNP grows generally through acquisition of smaller boutique accounting firms that you'd find in smaller communities. So we're a large accounting firm, but we have that small accounting firm feel. Our specific service line and the clients that I work with are small business owners. So I consult really daily on how to implement the correct systems and set up technology so that our staff can support the business owner from an accounting function. So that's what our e-service line is. We see a skew towards professionals, real estate and construction, technology companies, but we're also seeing a rise in food and beverage, e-commerce, and cannabis as well. So having the right digital strategy coupled with the right tools can help you drive quick decisions. And my hope for today is by the end of this session, you'll be able to take some time or take some of our best practices in building a digital strategy and try them out yourself. So to do that, I'm going to highlight the change in workflow that accountants and bookkeepers have seen by using integrated accounting applications, how COVID has accelerated digital strategy for all businesses, and really what does that mean, and how we approach building a tech stack for us and for our clients, because the process is fairly similar. And I'm hoping that by sharing this process, because I know there's a wide range of businesses and business owners here, industries. So I'm trying to show our process, what we're doing, so that you can implement that or take some of our best practices to how you work with your clients. We leverage tools or applications that are easily accessible or off the shelf. We're not looking to build or recreate the wheel. We're looking to take what's in the market and connect it and make it as efficient as possible. So we look to automate what we can, definitely get rid of paper. We want to make sure that we have data flowing in real time between different applications where possible. So by having that foundation in place is then when you have that foundation in place is then when you can build towards getting that accurate picture of your business, and you can then make those quick decisions. So to relate that back, I mentioned about highlighting the change in workflow. So I'm going to explain a little bit about how the change in using cloud applications is, the adoption of cloud applications has changed the way that we work with small business owners. And the reason behind this is just to show a little bit about those building blocks. So the old way that we used to operate with our clients, kind of on an on-site premise. So you'd have an accounting system, point of sale system that was located, actually within the business, different memory storage devices, physical paper needing to go back and forth. Basically, there's two sets of data that you're working with. So you had what was being compiled and entered into the system on site. You were then taking that information and providing it to your accountants to have that information compiled, reported back out on, and you're making decisions, sometimes quarterly, if you're on top of things, but usually it was every 6 months and sometimes annually. With the way that cloud accounting tools are now readily available, the way we currently interact with our clients is through a central source of financial data and documents. So that central source for financial information is accessed by our team and by the business owner at the same time. So typically that's the accounting system that will be connected So it's online. We're connecting through the accounting system. That accounting system is also connecting to their bank and credit card accounts to collect transactions, and that data is flowing in real time. So again, because this information is flowing in real time, you're able to have that reflection of where you're sitting in a more timely manner. It helps us reconcile the books for our clients on a monthly basis as opposed to quarterly. What that does is give the business owner the ability to spot issues before they get out of control, monitor changes that are being made. But really, what we see the most common is to make decisions on knowing who to pay when with different vendors and increase that cash flow. In a recent presentation, actually, with another Chamber of Commerce in Ontario, I had asked the attendees, how is COVID, how has it affected the way that you work with staff? It's like, A, do you work with staff? B, do you work differently with your clients or your suppliers? 70% of them said all of the above. And that kind of relates to this, the report that we see and the numbers that we see through Gartner. So Gartner is a publication out there that a lot of consulting companies will use. But in a recent report, they showed that 2/3 of businesses have accelerated their digital strategy. But really, what does that mean? I mean, a lot of you have lived this and would be able to speak to it with real stories, right? So COVID has forced businesses to change the way they operate. Staff aren't able to go into offices. We're not able to meet face-to-face with clients as much as we used to. Stores or restaurants were closed. Some health and wellness companies were temporarily shut down. And the reaction that we saw in regards to that digital strategy is that it was kind of like something that was on the shelf that a lot of businesses had there, but didn't have a lot of focus on. This just accelerated that trend. So the move to cloud-based applications to allow staff to work in a connected environment, leveraging things like Zoom or Teams for virtual meeting rooms and virtual collaboration. Also a greater focus again on cash flow. Businesses, some had to pivot or had to temporarily shut down. We saw restaurants that focused on in-dining have to turn to delivery or even turn into like the grocery market. We saw retail stores turn to e-commerce and changes in the supply chain so that they had to source differently. And we saw more local products on virtual shelves. We saw virtual health and wellness models start to pop up, virtual professional services, similar to what we're doing here, but law firms that are operating in the cloud or consulting companies. Also similar to what Laura was talking about, the other aspect of that is staff, and staff have left and haven't returned for a variety of reasons, whether it's a change in career, safety, or work-life balance. So these are all examples of have the companies that we worked with that had a solid digital strategy and were already on these financial tools and working with real-time financial information benefited. Well, we're able to take advantage of the benefits that were provided by the Canadian government in a far quicker and more efficient way than those that weren't. So whether that was the CEWS claims or rent subsidies, because they had those building blocks in place, it was a lot easier for us to help them out. So let's talk about some of those building blocks and how we go about building a tech stack for our clients. So when evaluating your digital strategy, again, the technology stack is those building blocks. It's how you are able to put in a foundation to work in an automated or connected or real-time world. So the factors that you want to keep in mind when building a technology stack or taking what you already have as a technology stack and fine-tuning that engine. So we'll talk about that, and I'll also give some examples of tech stack services and workflow that we've put together for some clients so that you can think of your business and some of the gaps that you may have in your processes. And after today's session, really take a little bit of time to evaluate your current systems, literally just write them down and make even a basic map if that helps. And I'll show you an example of one of those. coming up here. So when building a tech stack or making any changes, or we're building a tech stack, there's likely going to be some changes that will happen. So these are the components that we always want to keep an eye on. So when we work with our clients who are digitizing their business, we have to look at how each one of these affects the other. So that's people, that's process, that's technology. And I'm sure many of you have heard that before. You know, has technology been purchased and implemented? Like have all of these key stakeholders, has everybody's workflow been looked at before making that change? You know, are things mapped correctly? What are the security implications? So what we always consider from a people standpoint, and when changing new technology, before that decision's even been made on what to put in, is your staff equipped to work with that change? Do they have the right certifications? Have they been brought into that conversation so that they can have some input? From a roles and responsibilities, is it clear to staff who is responsible for what? Have some tasks been eliminated and changed the day-to-day activities for staff, while some new tasks have been created for others? How do you take you know, a staff member that had 90% of their day doing manual work, and you put in a piece of technology that eliminates that? Can you get them to do something else? From a process standpoint, mapping that workflow, start with the basic systems map. So I'll show you one of those in a minute here. And then really drill down to what activities are involved underneath those that surface map. And if you have to do any data migration, prep to make sure that you know what you really want to move over. A lot of that data isn't relevant when you're going back 2, 3, 4, 5 years. If you need to move data, it's always going to be better if you can leave some of it behind. It's no different than moving you know, from a house to another house. And from a technology standpoint, are your applications able to connect? And if they are, how does data flow from one to another? Is one application pulling the information? Is there two-way information pull and push? And then also, again, from a security and access standpoint, who do you want to be able to access what sections you know, of these programs? So those are the factors that we put in place. But from a strategy standpoint, we go from general to specific. And so what I have up here on the screen is the example of the core applications that we use to support our clients. Because all of our clients are business owners that require accounting or bookkeeping. Now, your business is going to be different, right? So you'll have a different set of clients that you're looking to service. But I want to show you how we formulate our strategy so that you can kind of take that same approach. So our clients, you know, they all require to pay bills, they all require payroll, and they all require to report to the government. So that's what we did is basically understand the core client that we have, and then find the best applications on the market that are easy to implement, that will service the widest range of clients that we have. So we have, you know, our accounting systems, we have our document collection tools, our payments platforms. And I won't get too into those specifics unless people have questions on that, but happy to talk about that at another time as well. But again, how we look at this is how can we get the most range to cover the client's needs that we're servicing? Now, we're a professional services firm, so it may be a little bit different, but I'll show you here how that could relate to, you know, like a restaurant or food and beverage client. So again, we take the core services that we're offering, build a set of applications or technology around that to service those clients, and then move to a more niche area based on a different type of client. So I guess an example that, going back to food and beverage, is you may have a restaurant that has in-dine dining, but then also does catering, or a hotel that you know, has guests, but also host conferences or events. So that's what I mean when we look at, you know, how do we go general to specific? So I mentioned food and beverage a few times. I was actually at Niagara-on-the-Lake this weekend. I got to check out some of the restaurants and wineries. I actually saw the Chamber of Commerce office. They were doing a ghost tour outside of it, which I thought was kind of neat. But also because the food and beverage industry is one of those that was rocked a lot by the pandemic, I wanted to share a specific example of how we use a basic systems map for a restaurant group that we worked with, and how we built out that wish list and then helped them source some solutions. So this restaurant group was in a growth stage and looking to, sorry about that. So this restaurant group was in a growth stage and looking to expand to other provinces. And that was right as the lockdown began. And we worked with them to evaluate their current systems and, like I said, build a wish list and create an integrated cloud ecosystem. So using that general to specific method, we started with their customers. So they gave us a list of issues that they had on, you can see that on the left-hand side. They had lots of paper. They had delivery apps that were taking a lot of orders at once, and they weren't able to stagger those orders. So, like on Super Bowl or Valentine's Day or Mother's Day, they get 40 orders coming in within a 20 to 30 minute span, and then they weren't able to service all those clients in an efficient way. A lot of tip calculating problems. And so what we did is we looked at their customer, and what was most important to them was how, for a restaurant, how can my customer get their food in the quickest possible way, and pay us in the quickest possible way. So the systems map that you see on the left is starting with the customer, and the X's that you see are the areas where there is manual data entry required. So the main components that they had was their point of sale system, which is the restaurant manager. Within that point of sale system is the inventory management tools. How do they get that information to the suppliers to make those orders? How are they paying those suppliers? They were then basically getting a lot of paper receipts, compiling that into Excel, using their RBC Express payment portal to pay bills. They're doing a lot of manual entry onto the QuickBooks, their QuickBooks desktop files. The staff was using different scheduling systems as to where the reservation system was going. The online ordering system that they were using didn't fully connect into the point of sale system. So when I talk about putting together a map, that's what I mean. Like, really just make a list of the different applications you're using, the different people that you have to interact with, and how does that all work. This is very basic. We were able to do this in about an hour. And then we built a wish list around that. So by working with the different people and process technology method, we wanted to help them build a wish list to have an integrated solution to give them, the ability to control the way that orders are coming through, to understand that, when an order is processed, when to make those purchases from their vendors. And I won't get into a lot of these specifics, but what I wanted to, again, just reinforce is the method behind going into this. So a lot of these tools are readily available. We again use the customer, who is the most important to them. How do they pay them? And then how do we make sure that when they're collecting that money from the client, that it's going to push that information into the relevant system. So their point of sale system now connects into their QuickBooks Online, which so when an order goes through, whether it's Uber Eats or Skip the Dishes, that also then pushes to the kitchen. So they don't have to rewrite that stuff. They're able to calculate their tips and scheduling through that point of sale system. They have an inventory management system that connects into that. So if they see levels are going low for a certain type of food, they're able to make orders at a better time, reduce their waste. We set them up with a different bill payment system that integrates into the accounting system, so that when they make that payment, it actually reconciles. There's no need to re-enter that. And from a tip standpoint, they had a really nice tip card system. So they're actually able to tip out their employees on a day-to-day basis. So again, when you're looking at how to create a better work environment, by having gone through all these steps and talked to their, the business owner, the staff, and building that wish list, that's how we were able to compile these different applications and connect it all and work with them to build something that really that gives them the ability to have real-time information so they can then make better strategic decisions. So, but like, how do we do that? It's simple, but it's not that easy in some ways. If you're already using some of the cloud accounting tools on the market, QuickBooks Online and Xero are the ones that we implement. If you go to apps.com or apps.xero.com, you can poke around in there and see these are the different applications that you can source and connect to the accounting system. So yeah, I'm hoping that after going through this, you're able to go out there, take a look at some of the different tools that are on the market, and build a little map for yourself and see where some of those gaps might be. Thank you. Any questions there?
Yeah, actually, there are a few, Matt. Thank you so very much, because I think you really touched on the point of how critical technology has become to businesses in their success, but even more in an accelerated pace over the last 18 months. We have had a couple of questions coming in, and let me combine a couple of them into one. And that is actually the question, is there a certain size of business that would benefit from cloud accounting more than another?
No, and the reason why I say that is because actually it's the small business owner never had access to these types of tools 10 years ago. The technology is a lot cheaper now, so it's a lot easier for a small business owner to go out there and have what would have been only available to an enterprise level client before. So when you look at a medium to large business, they're already working in this type of environment. Maybe they're managing their own servers or whatever, but now those tools are available to startups. Then it's not going to break the bank. That's the other thing, is like these applications are not they're not going to be as large of an investment as you would have seen for like a full ERP system or something like that.
Yeah, no, that makes full sense of it. Mm-hmm. One of the questions also that has come forward, and especially from small businesses, where we have to remember that they possibly don't have a full-time employee that actually looks after some of the technology needs that are there. And that is now linked to cybersecurity. We have noticed that there have been an increase of cybersecurity threats that business had to deal with over the last 20 months, in part because of the increased usage of technology, but also in part because we have a high number of our workforce that are working remotely. And that has also created some risks. And so some of our participants here are wondering if you can speak to that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's, when it comes to cybersecurity, my opinion, having worked in financial technology for 10 years and for a major company that took this very seriously, is that to leave it to the professionals. So these cloud-based applications the ones that we use, obviously do your research on some of the ones that may not be as well known in the market, but the ones that we use at MMP have to have gone through testing and the same level of security that any online banking would have. But what I mean by leave it to the professionals is they have servers, they have server rooms. This is all managed in a way that is extremely important to them, because if their reputation, or if they have any attacks, that's like their core, right? They're always going to be able to manage security better than somebody who's trying to do it themselves. And when it comes to people working remote and how do you keep that secure, it's by having a proper, it kind of relates to that HR stuff, but it's having a proper onboarding and offboarding for your staff, and making sure that when you're bringing them on or when they're leaving, that you consult with whatever applications that they're using, their help desk, or even our group, we help with that just to make sure that the access points have been removed.
Yeah, no, this is very helpful. And Matt, thank you so very much actually of giving us an overview on a system that is meant to make it easier for companies, safer for companies, and more effective actually moving forward. And I think we will see more of that filtering into all of our accounting practices. And on this note, I have my colleague Karina joining me because we have a quick prize giveaway before we're actually sharing the networking link, because we have a half-hour networking session after this at all. But Karina, I'm going to pass it over to you.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for staying to the end. So you got to be here to win, of course, our rules. Brad's going to show you the wonderful gift basket that we have donated from Meridian Credit Union. And this is going to go to Marina Glencross. Congratulations, Marina. So we will contact you and make sure that you get your fabulous basket. And I'm headed over to the networking session, so I'll see you there.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My special thanks go to Matt and Laura for all the information that has been shared. And my thanks also go to Meridian Credit Union for actually supporting the Business Success Series during this October Small Month. It's so critical for our communities to have strong small businesses that are there. And when we look at HR, when we look at accounting systems, those are critical elements that are making us more successful. So I encourage you to get out of this Zoom link and to click onto the one that link that has been shared in the chat by Savannah to everyone. And I will see you in the networking part. Thank you very much.